Chapter 211, Luo Li is captured by the Thunder God Organization Clang. Congratulations, host, for synthesizing a 5th-tier zombie. You have won a chance to draw a prize. Would you like to use it? Yes, Yi Li replied without hesitation. The lottery begins. The pointer in the virtual roulette in Yi Li's mind started spinning, and after a few seconds, it stopped. Congratulations, host, you have drawn the Great Skill Red Blaze. Red Blaze, and Great Skill, it's a type of extremely high-temperature fire in the post-apocalyptic continent. Yi Li thought that Red Blaze didn't seem to have much use for him personally. However, it might not be useful to him, but it could be useful to Luo Yu. The fire she had in her hands earlier was, to put it bluntly, quite rubbish. Now that Luo Yu was his disciple, how could he not give her a little welcoming gift as her master? So, Yi Li claimed the Red Blaze skill. Take this. Yi Li handed the Red Blaze skill manual to Luo Yu. Senior, this is, Luo Yu was somewhat stunned. It's not anything great, just a great skill called Red Blaze, Yi Li said casually. What? Luo Yu gasped in shock. She never would have dreamed that what Yi Li handed over would be in great skill. Red Blaze? She remembered her father mentioning that Red Blaze was an extremely formidable divine fire. Luo Yu carefully accepted the manual, realizing that she now possessed such a valuable skill manual. Yi Li's face remained calm, and he thought that it was getting late, they should find a place to rest. After a brief scan with his heavenly spirit eyes, Yi Li found a relatively clean room and led Luo Yu there. The next day, Yi Li and Luo Yu returned to the flame base. He could have continued exploring the Falling Rock mountain range, but having Luo Yu by his side was a potential risk. It was better to send her back first. Now that swordsman Ah Chi had become a 5th-tier zombie, that was quite an accomplishment. As soon as Yi Li and Luo Yu arrived at the flame base, a flame member hurriedly approached them. Leader, Miss Luo Li has been abducted. This statement hit Luo Yu like a thunderbolt on a clear day. What did you say? Luo Yu stared at the man in disbelief. It was done by the Thunder God Organization, the man said. The Thunder God Organization was a group in the northern wilderness region, with power roughly equivalent to that of Flame. In the northern wilderness region, every organization sought to swallow the others to expand its territory. Some organizations even colluded with the Dark Race. For example, organizations that researched gene-enhancing drugs often had connections with the Dark Race. It could be said that the entire northern wilderness region was under the control of the Dark Race. Even if there were still some small organizations, they were just insignificant forces. Gather everyone immediately and head to the Thunder God Organization's base. Luo Yu said coldly. Yes, leader. After the man replied, he immediately went to gather the others. After her father's death, Luo Li was her only family left. Her mother had died during childbirth when giving birth to Luo Li. Luo Li was her only family, and you could say that Luo Li was like her lifeline. Yi Li found this quite interesting. There seemed to be some hints of intrigue. Before long, over 100 flame members had gathered, including 71st-tier evolved beings, over 32nd-tier evolved beings, and 4 3rd-tier evolved beings. Such strength could be described as quite weak. If the Flame Organization and the Thunder God Organization were evenly matched, one could imagine just how weak the Thunder God Organization was. Chapter 212 I really admire you. Luo Yu led the Flame Organization's members towards the Thunder God Organization's base. Yi Li originally didn't want to get involved in these uninteresting matters, but staying at the Flame base would be even less interesting. Before they departed, Luo Yu casually asked someone for the location of the Thunder God Organization. After storing the Apocalypse Legion in the system space, Yi Li activated the swift steps to head towards the Thunder God Organization. The Thunder God Organization had a name that exuded a certain level of dominance. However, one's name should align with his actual strength, or it could incur the displeasure of others. Coincidentally, Yi Li was feeling somewhat displeased, and the consequences of Yi Li's displeasure were not something to be taken lightly. Upon reaching the Thunder God Base city, Yi Li observed that it was roughly similar to the Flame Base. He found a random spot to lie down, knowing that it would take some time for the Flame members to arrive. However, he hadn't been lying down for long when he heard a very grating voice. "Brat, did you just join the Thunder God organization? How can you be sleeping here instead of working?" Yi Li had known that someone was approaching, but he simply didn't want to pay any attention to these ants. He slowly opened his eyes, his expression bored. Before him stood 3 men in their 30s, all first-tier evolved beings. One of the men, seeing that Yi Li hadn't responded, furrowed his brow. "Brat, I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" "I really admire you," Yi Li said calmly as he looked at the 3 men. These 3 men were momentarily stunned, not understanding what Yi Li meant. "Brat, what do you mean by that?" one of the men asked Yi Li. Yi Li smiled faintly. "I admire you all for daring to speak to me, Yi Li, in this manner." "What did you say?" The 3 men were all stunned. They had seen many arrogant people, but they had never seen such an arrogant person. They had never even heard of it, let alone seen it. "Brat, are you sick or something? You're just a newcomer to the Thunder God organization, and you dare to speak to us veterans like this?" one of the men sneered. Yi Li smiled. "Indeed, it's a pity. I've always spoken this way. So, what are you all going to do now?" The 3 men were infuriated, glaring at Yi Li. "What are we going to do?" "Today, I'm going to show you a bit of our style," one of the men shouted angrily. Yi Li, instead of getting angry, smiled and said, "Do you know what consequences you'll face for saying that?" "Consequences?" The 3 men were puzzled, looking at each other, unable to fathom what consequences Yi Li was talking about. "Let me tell you. You will die," Yi Li said calmly. "Ha ha ha." Upon hearing this, the 3 men burst into laughter. They had never heard such a hilarious joke in their lives. "Do you believe that one can kill you with just a glance?" Yi Li continued speaking to the man who had spoken earlier. As soon as these words were uttered, the 3 men burst into even louder laughter, and they even had tears in their eyes from laughing so hard. However, just as the man who had spoken was about to say scornful words to Yi Li, before he could even utter a word, his eyes widened, and his mouth gaped wide open. The other 2 men had no idea what had just happened, and this man had already collapsed on the ground. "What?" The 2 men stared closely and saw a terrifying bloody hole on the fallen man's forehead. Chapter 213, Thunder God Organization's patrol team. The 2 men were terrified, unable to comprehend how Yi Li had killed the fallen man. You. These 2 men couldn't even string together a coherent sentence. "Actually, death is not that frightening," Yi Li said calmly, looking at the 2 men. Hearing this, the 2 men became even more panicked. We're all members of the Thunder God organization. If you kill us, our leader won't spare you," one of the men managed to say with all his strength. Yi Li smiled indifferently. "It's a pity that I'm not a member of the Thunder God organization." Upon hearing this, the pupils of the 2 men rapidly contracted. A terrifying golden light shot from Yi Li's eyes, and these 2 men didn't even have time to scream before their lives were extinguished forever. Yet Yi Li's face remained unchanged. He casually plucked a blade of grass and put it in his mouth, then continued lying there, waiting for Flame to arrive. At this moment, the Thunder God organization's patrol team approached. The patrol team consisted of over 20 people, all of them first-tier evolved beings. As they say, bad luck can befall you even when you're just drinking water. Without a doubt, the luck of these over 20 people had reached an all-time low. They saw Yi Li, and the captain of the patrol team noticed Yi Li lying under a tree, with 3 members of the Thunder God base. These 3 people were also lying down, and there was a faint smell of blood in the air. The captain of the patrol team was shocked and quickly led his men over. As he expected, these 3 Thunder God organization members were indeed dead. And the person who had killed them was undoubtedly the young man before them. "Did you kill them?" the captain of the patrol team asked Yili coldly. Yili opened his eyes, looking rather bored. "Are there others in this place?" The captain of the patrol team was taken aback. He hadn't expected this young man to be so indifferent in the face of so many people. "Do you know what the consequences are for killing members of the Thunder God organization?" the captain of the patrol team asked coldly. In Yili's eyes, these over 21st-tier evolved beings were undoubtedly very weak. Yili looked at the captain of the patrol team indifferently. "In fact, they were killed by a beam of light in my eyes." As soon as these words were spoken, the over 21st-tier evolved beings were left dumbfounded. "Killed by a beam of light from his eyes?" "Brat, what do you mean by that?" the captain of the patrol team yelled at Yili. "It means nothing. You guys are so foolish that even if I explained it to you, you wouldn't understand," Yili said slowly. Not only the captain of the patrol team but also the over 21st-tier evolved beings hadn't expected Yili to be so arrogant. Could it be that he wasn't afraid of death? "Brat, you've ignited my anger," the captain of the patrol team shouted. Yili smiled and looked at the captain of the patrol team. A few seconds later, he said slowly, "Do you believe that even with so many of you, I can make you see their corpses in 1 second?" Shock, absolute shock. The over 20 members of the Thunder God organization's patrol team froze. They dared to swear that this was the most arrogant statement they had ever heard in their entire lives. "It seems you don't believe me. In that case, I'll have to make you believe it," Yili said calmly. With a flick of his finger, Yili activated the heavenly spirit eyes, unleashing a terrifying golden light. Chapter 214, The Hospitality of the Thunder God Organization. Swish. 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 As the sound of breaking wind emerged, more than 21st-tier evolved beings from the Thunder God base had horrifying blood holes appear on their heads. More than 21st-tier evolved beings fell heavily to the ground, their eyes wide open as if they couldn't believe they had died like this. This, the patrol team leader looked on in terror, preferring to believe that the sky was falling rather than believing this was real. He hadn't even had time to see clearly. "I told you, even if you have so many people, I can make you see their bodies in 1 second. Why don't you believe me?" Yili said slowly to the patrol team leader. The patrol team leader was now scared out of his wits, knowing that in an instant, he would be killed by the young man in front of him. "Go, get someone," Yili said slowly. Upon hearing Yili's words, the patrol team leader shouted and rushed away, reaching the fastest speed in history. "Leader, we have a problem." The patrol team leader ran into the council hall of the Thunder God organization, crawling and rolling. A middle-aged man, who exuded an aura of dominance, furrowed his brow and looked displeased as he asked, "What's going on?" The patrol team leader recounted everything that had just happened. "What?" Instantly, the entire council hall of the Thunder God organization fell silent. So silent that the heartbeat of everyone in the room could be clearly heard. "Is what you're saying true?" the middle-aged man asked coldly. This middle-aged man was none other than the leader of the Thunder God organization, a 5th-tier evolved being named Lei Zhan. "Leader, it's absolutely true," the patrol team leader said with a mournful face. Lei Zhan squinted his eyes and then gave a cold smile. "It seems that the Flame organization has recruited a powerful genetic warrior, but we have hostages." "The leader is right, the Flame organization is now nothing more than a bunch of scattered sand. Even Han Hai is dead. What does the Flame organization have to fight against our Thunder God organization?" "That's right, and besides, the leader's master is the famous sky-crushing demon Hand of the Wilderness North District. When all the members of the Flame organization arrive, we'll wipe them out in one fell swoop." Everyone in the entire Thunder God organization council hall burst into laughter. "Everyone, since the Flame organization has sent someone to attack us, if we don't go out and take a look, won't we?" the Thunder God organization, lack hospitality? Gather all the members of the Thunder God organization. Yes, leader. Immediately, Lei Zhan led over 100 members of the Thunder God organization outside. Leader, that person is over there. The patrol team leader pointed in a direction. Lei Zhan followed the direction the patrol team leader pointed and found a young man under a withered tree. Lei Zhan gave a cold smile and then walked over slowly, with the members of the Thunder God organization following closely behind him. The Thunder God organization members stopped their footsteps 10 steps away from Yili, and Lei Zhan looked at the young man in front of him, a mocking smile crossing his face. You're the genetic warrior sent by the Flame organization, right? Lei Zhan asked Yili. Yili slowly opened his eyes upon hearing this, looking at Lei Zhan and saying, perhaps. Perhaps? What do you mean by perhaps? Lei Zhan stared at Yili. How could ants like you possibly understand the meaning behind my words? Yili replied slowly to Lei Zhan. Lei Zhan furrowed his brow upon hearing this, never expecting that the young man in front of him would still be able to say such things when facing the Thunder God organization. Chapter 215, The Arrival of the Flame Organization's People. Lei Zhan stared at Yili intensely, and after a few seconds, he spoke coldly. I didn't expect Flame to actually hire someone who isn't afraid of death. In Lei Zhan's eyes, the fact that Yili remained so calm in the face of the entire Thunder God organization could only be explained by his fearlessness of death. Yili smiled faintly. Who said I'm not afraid of death? Lei Zhan was taken aback by this response. If you're afraid of death, why do you act so calmly? Simply because you can't kill me, Yili said slowly. These words left everyone in the Thunder God organization stunned. Originally, your Thunder God organization could have lived quite well, but unfortunately, you made 2 mistakes, Yili continued. Lei Zhan was surprised again. Capturing Luo Li was one thing, but he couldn't think of the second mistake. I'd like to hear what 2 mistakes my Thunder God organization has made, Lei Zhan said with a mocking smile, no longer hiding his contempt. In Lei Zhan's eyes, Yili was already a dead man, so he had no intention of letting him live any longer. The first mistake was capturing Luo Li, Yili said slowly. And the second? Lei Zhan stared at Yili, and not only Lei Zhan, but everyone in the Thunder God organization also turned their attention to Yili. Yili remained silent for a moment and then spoke slowly. The second mistake was offending me, Yili. Ha ha ha. Lei Zhan laughed heartily as if he had heard the funniest joke ever. Kid, offended you? So what if our Thunder God organization has offended you? Lei Zhan looked at Yili with extreme disdain. I think this kid must have eaten the heart of a lion, actually daring to offend our Thunder God organization. That's right, he's truly ignorant, he probably doesn't even know how miserable his fate will be. I want to see his facial expressions next, I believe it will be very interesting. Members of the Thunder God organization mocked Yili with contemptuous laughter. Yili's face remained as calm as water, as if he hadn't heard a word of what the Thunder God organization members were saying. Do you want to know what will happen when you offend me? Yili looked at Lei Zhan and spoke slowly. Lei Zhan was momentarily stunned. He couldn't understand why, at this point, Yili could still remain so calm. Didn't he know the terror of the Thunder God organization? I do want to know what will happen when I offend you. Lei Zhan stared at Yili. Offending me, Yili, will lead to the utter destruction of your Thunder God organization, Yili said calmly. Hearing this, the Thunder God organization members couldn't contain their anger. Brat, now I'll show you the terror of the Thunder God organization. Lei Zhan shouted at Yili. As he was about to make a move, a man shouted, Leader, the Flame organization's people are here. Lei Zhan stopped in his tracks and looked ahead. Luo Yu, leading over 100 members of the Flame organization, was approaching. Lei Zhan smirked, the reinforcements had finally arrived. Now, in addition to having Luo Li as a hostage, they had another one. There was no doubt that the Thunder God organization would win this battle. Luo Yu and the Flame Organization members stopped dozens of steps away from the Thunder God Organization. Silence, a deadly silence. After a few seconds, Luo Yu looked at Lei Zhan coldly and asked, "Lei Zhan, where's Lyre?" Lei Zhan smiled triumphantly, "Don't worry, Miss Luo, your sister is having a great time inside the Thunder God base." Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 216, Bring Luo Li Out. Luo Yu stared coldly at Lei Zhan, and the members of the Thunder God Organization were ambitious, always wanting to swallow up their Flame Organization. Now that they had captured Luo Li, it was obvious to everyone what the Thunder God Organization's intentions were. Lei Zhan, release Lyre immediately, or else you'll bear the consequences. Luo Yu said coldly. Lei Zhan smiled in response, "Miss Luo, I really admire your Flame Organization for hiring someone who isn't afraid of death to assist you." As these words left his mouth, Luo Yu was momentarily puzzled. She didn't understand what Lei Zhan meant. However, when she looked towards the withered tree not far away, she quickly realized. A hint of joy appeared on Luo Yu's face. She had thought that the senior wouldn't come, but she hadn't expected him to appear here now. "Luo miss, I currently have 2 hostages. Do you think it's still necessary to continue fighting? I propose this, your Flame Organization submits to my Thunder God Organization, or else," Lei Zhan continued with a sinister smile. "I believe Miss Luo wouldn't want to see your beloved sister die in front of you, would you?" Upon hearing this, Luo Yu's face, already cold as ice, became even colder. She stared at Lei Zhan with a fierce gaze. Luo Li was her only family in this world, and she couldn't allow any harm to come to her. "What do you think, Miss Luo?" "Take some time to consider," Lei Zhan said triumphantly, looking at Luo Yu. Luo Yu was uncertain about how to respond. She had no idea what had happened to Luo Li, who was in the hands of the Thunder God Organization. At that moment, Yi Li, under the withered tree, spoke up. "Xiao Yu, do you want to kill them all, or what?" These words shocked Lei Zhan and all the Thunder God Organization members. They couldn't believe that Yi Li would dare to say such a thing at this moment. Kill all the members of the Thunder God Organization? Did he have the capability to do that? Lei Zhan was furious. Now he regretted not killing Yi Li earlier. "Senior, how about rescuing Lyre first, and then," Luo Yu hadn't finished her sentence when Yi Li suddenly disappeared from where he was standing. She didn't even have time to see clearly, Yi Li had already appeared in front of Lei Zhan. He raised one finger. The members of the Thunder God Organization were shocked. They clearly remembered that Yi Li had been standing under the withered tree just a moment ago. How had he suddenly appeared next to their leader? This speed was terrifying beyond belief. Lei Zhan was equally horrified. As Yi Li suddenly appeared beside him, he took 3 steps back in fear, staring at Yi Li in shock. He hadn't even had a chance to speak when Yi Li said, "Bring Luo Li out." Lei Zhan stared at Yi Li, steadying his mind.
He then sneered, "You dare to appear before me and ask me to bring Luo Li out? That's truly amusing." As he finished speaking, Lei Zhan launched a powerful punch towards Yi Li. Lei Zhan was a 5th-tier evolved being, and his punch was naturally terrifying. Golden spiritual energy radiated from Yi Li's index finger, and as Lei Zhan's fist swung towards him, the golden spiritual energy also shot out. Swish! The speed of the golden spiritual energy was incredibly fast. Lei Zhan couldn't react in time, and his fist collided heavily with the golden spiritual energy. Ollie! In an instant, a horrifying sound of bones breaking echoed. Lei Zhan clutched his own hand, screaming in agony, because his hand was broken. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com.
Chapter 217, Do you know who my master is? The members of the Thunder God Organization were in shock at the sight, their faces filled with disbelief. Their leader was a fifth-tier evolved being, and they had never thought that this young man could easily incapacitate him. Now, can you bring Luo Li out? Yi Li looked at Lei Zhan calmly. Lei Zhan, still writhing in pain while clutching his injured hand, heard Yi Li's words and felt an even deeper sense of despair. He knew that the young man before him was far beyond his ability to defeat. With just one strike, he would meet his demise. Lei Zhan endured the pain and stared at Yi Li. Do you know who my master is? Lei Zhan's master was none other than the infamous Wilderness Northern Region's sky-crushing demon hand. In the Wilderness Northern Region, the name sky-crushing demon hand struck fear into the hearts of everyone who heard it. A serene smile appeared on Yi Li's face. Bring Luo Li out, I don't want to repeat myself. With those words, Yi Li activated the third layer of the ancient devil tome. As the ancient devil tome entered its third layer, the terrifying demonic aura emanating from Yi Li intensified. In an instant, the entire area was shrouded in this terrifying demonic aura. Both the members of the Flame and Thunder God organizations widened their eyes in shock, their expressions filled with horror. They dared not even breathe because what they were inhaling was not air but a suffocating demonic aura that sent shivers down their spines. Their entire bodies trembled uncontrollably, and their souls involuntarily submitted to the man before them. Lei Zhan, who was closest to Yi Li, was already suffering from excruciating pain, and his expression twisted further. He could swear that he had never felt such fear since birth. I'll bring Luo Li out, Lei Zhan stammered quickly. Lei Zhan knew that if he didn't bring Luo Li out now, he would die a miserable death. He had no doubt about Yi Li's strength anymore. Yi Li's face remained calm as he withdrew the terrifying demonic aura from the third layer of the ancient devil tome, causing the suffocating pressure to dissipate. The crowd stared at Yi Li in shock, and they couldn't help but feel that the young man before them was no longer just a human but a demon who had emerged from the abyss. Why are you still standing there? Go and bring Miss Luo Li out. Lei Zhan angrily yelled at the man beside him. The man next to Lei Zhan was startled and quickly rushed into the Thunder God base. Senior, it was my fault for not respecting you. I hope you can forgive me. Lei Zhan looked at Yi Li in fear. Yi Li ignored Lei Zhan and stood still. The members of the Flame Organization and the Thunder God Organization looked at the figure of Yi Li. His figure couldn't be described as imposing, on the contrary, it was somewhat slender. However, it gave them a shock like a sharp sword thrust. They couldn't fathom why there would be someone like Yi Li in this world. Not long after, Luo Li was brought out. Tears still lingered on Luo Li's small cheeks, but when she saw Luo Yu, she immediately rushed into her sister's arms. Sister, I thought I'd never see you again, Luo Li cried in distress. Senior, Miss Luo Li has been brought out. Then Lei Zhan cautiously said to Yi Li. Yi Li smiled faintly and spoke slowly, now that Luo Li is out, it's time for you to die. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool. Com. Chapter 218, Luo Yu offers herself. Hearing those words, Lei Zhan was shocked. He couldn't believe that even after bringing Luo Li out, Yi Li still intended to kill him. My master is the sky-crushing demon hand. You can't kill me, or my master will never let you go, Lei Zhan said, staring at Yi Li with horror. At this moment, Luo Yu approached. She looked at Yi Li and said, Senior, the sky-crushing demon hand is an 8th-tier evolved being, a renowned figure throughout the entire Wilderness Northern Region. Lei Zhan had heard Luo Yu's words and, despite the pain in his hand, quickly added, Senior, as long as you spare my life, I swear I won't tell my master about what happened today. An 8th-tier evolved being was indeed terrifying, but now that Yi Li had reached the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome, what could an 8th-tier evolved being do? A faint smile appeared on Yi Li's face, and he looked at Lei Zhan with pity. Never threaten me. Don't try it, and don't think you can be the exception. With a swift movement, Yi Li's one yang finger struck, creating a gruesome blood hole on Lei Zhan's head. Well, leader is dead, leader is dead. The members of the Thunder God organization screamed in panic, with some even wetting themselves in fear. Yi Li's expression remained unchanged as he turned to Luo Yu and said, I leave the rest to you. With that, Yi Li activated his swift steps and disappeared from the scene. Luo Yu's expression seemed frozen, and she knew that Senior was powerful, but she couldn't fathom just how strong he was now. After a few seconds, Luo Yu regained her composure and addressed the members of the Thunder God organization who were in utter panic. Your leader is dead. Now you can choose to submit to flame, or you can choose death. Hearing those words, the members of the Thunder God organization all fell silent. After a few seconds, a third tier evolved being looked at Luo Yu and said, we're willing to submit to flame. In the wilderness area, there was no such a concept as loyalty. They had joined the Thunder God organization to stay alive, and now that Lei Zhan was dead, they had no reason not to join flame. A joyful expression appeared on Luo Yu's exquisite face. From the moment she had made Yi Li her master, she had sworn to make flame powerful. This was just the first step. After absorbing the Thunder God organization, Luo Yu returned to the flame base with Luo Li. At night, the moon shone brightly in the sky. Yi Li looked at the full moon with a glass of expensive red wine in his hand. After taking a sip, a faint smile appeared on his face. He thought about what Lei Zhan had said before he died, my master is the sky-crushing demon hand. If Lei Zhan's master wasn't the sky-crushing demon hand, Yi Li might have spared him. However, wherever Yi Li went, he would cause ripples. Killing Lei Zhan would inevitably draw the attention of the sky-crushing demon hand, and that made things more interesting. Life would be dull otherwise. Senior. A voice, as melodious as a yellow oriole singing, reached Yi Li's ears. Yi Li turned to see Luo Yu walking towards him. Luo Yu was wearing a thin garment, and her exquisite face had a slight blush. Do you need something? Yi Li looked at Luo Yu calmly. Luo Yu hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. After a few seconds, she mustered her courage and said firmly, Senior, you have done so much for Flame, and I have no way to repay you except by offering myself to you. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool.com. Chapter 219, The Abandoned City. After Luo Yu confessed, her exquisite face turned even redder, like a ripe apple that made one want to take a bite. Yi Li was taken aback. He hadn't expected Luo Yu to say such words, offering herself to him. Senior, I am serious, Luo Yu said shyly when Yi Li remained silent. She lowered her head as she spoke. Yi Li smiled faintly. Are you really serious? Luo Yu hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yes. Yi Li nodded in response. He looked at the bright moon in the night sky. It was indeed a beautiful night. I never refuse any woman. Since you wish to offer yourself to me, then come. Skip 30 minutes. Since reaching the third level of the ancient devil tome, Yi Li's power-up time had increased from 10 seconds to 30 minutes, which pleased him greatly. Zombie Treasure Chest XY. The next day, the system's prompt appeared in Yi Li's mind right on time. Without much thought, he opened the zombie treasure chests. Obtained 500 gene points, 500 strength points, 500 speed points, and 500 defense points. Congratulations to the host for becoming an 8th tier evolved being. Yi Li was somewhat stunned. He hadn't expected to become an 8th tier evolved being so quickly. But it was for the best. He needed to be higher in the realm than the members of the Apocalypse Legion since he was their leader. Luo Yu had already woken up. She brought breakfast, and when she saw that Yi Li was awake, her exquisite face turned even redder. Yi Li noticed her blush and couldn't help but tease, are you feeling shy? Luo Yu became even shyer, and her face turned as red as if it were about to bleed. By the way, apart from the Falling Stone Mountain Range, are there any other places with zombies? Yi Li asked. The Falling Stone mountain range was quite far from their location, and Yili didn't want to go there yet. Just the thought of it made him chuckle. The Falling Stone mountain range might sound like a mountain range, but it was actually a massive ancient architectural complex. Yili wondered if there were ancient zombies there. "Senior, there are zombies in the abandoned city," Luoyu replied quickly. Last time, she had only mentioned the Falling Stone mountain range because the outskirts of the mountain range were relatively free from powerful dark race members or zombies. But the abandoned city was different. It was home to powerful dark race members, zombies, and several formidable organizations. For a small organization like Flame, the abandoned city was undoubtedly a death zone. The abandoned city? Yili smiled faintly. Just the name of it piqued his interest. He was sure there would be plenty of zombies there. As for the dark race, he was now an 8th-tier evolved being. Dark race members were nothing more than wandering souls under his dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. After confirming the approximate location of the abandoned city with Luoyu, Yili activated his swift steps and left the flame base. An hour later, he appeared on a barren hill, with a vast abandoned city about a kilometer away from him. Yili could easily guess that this abandoned city was the abandoned city. Just as he was about to use swift steps to get closer, he heard some movement. He turned his head slightly. A dozen or so evolved beings were appearing on a nearby path, not far from him. Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 220, The Praying Mantis Catches the Cicada. While the Oriole waits behind, these dozen or so evolved beings were all dressed in blue robes with 4 large characters embroidered on the back, Cloud Peak Academy. Why did we come to the wilderness area? This place is utterly barren. Yeah, weren't we supposed to go to that Huangjiang base city? Really, those 2 Cloud Peak Academy recruiters simply embarrassed Cloud Peak Academy by dying in the jurisdiction of Huangjiang base city. A middle-aged man smiled and said, "Before coming here, I heard there are purgatory fruits in the snow pine forest of the abandoned city. We can gather some and offer them to the elders of the academy." Really? No wonder we came to the wilderness area. I thought you were planning to venture into the abandoned city. It's not an easy place to deal with. Yili was currently an 8th-tier evolved being. If he didn't want these dozen or so evolved beings to detect him, it would be impossible for them to do so. All these evolved beings were 5th-tier evolved beings, and they were all from Cloud Peak Academy. Yili speculated that these people had come to investigate the situation because of the 2 Cloud Peak Academy recruiters he had killed in Huangjiang base city. The efficiency of this Cloud Peak Academy didn't seem to be that great. They were only starting the investigation now. He also spotted a helicopter not far away with his heavenly spirit eyes. It was astonishing to see a helicopter in the wilderness area. Cloud Peak Academy must be quite wealthy. As for the purgatory fruits they discussed, Yili knew about them. When he went to the East City below the White Lotus sect, a few genetic warriors from the White Lotus sect had come to pick purgatory fruits. They said they used them to refine pills that could enhance their strength. The ancient devil tome that Yili possessed was obtained by swallowing a purgatory fruit. He hadn't expected that humans could also use purgatory fruits to refine pills. However, he had no interest in purgatory fruits. Instead, he was interested in these Cloud Peak Academy people. Without further ado, Yili followed them. The snow pine forest was covered in pristine white snow. This kind of beauty would undoubtedly be breathtaking if it were in China. The dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings entered the snow pine forest and began searching for the purgatory fruits. After about 10 minutes, one of the Cloud Peak Academy men exclaimed, "Look, is that a purgatory fruit?" As soon as he spoke, the dozen or so evolved beings turned their gaze in that direction. An eerie tree came into view, emitting a sinister aura. "Yes, that's a purgatory fruit, but to pick purgatory fruits, we need to eat body protection pills first." "But where can we find body protection pills now?" Since I came to the snow pine forest to pick purgatory fruits, one was well prepared. With that, the man took out a small box from his pocket. When he opened it, a fragrant ancient-looking pill was revealed. Without hesitation, he swallowed the body protection pill and then approached the purgatory tree. After taking the body protection pill, the evil aura of the purgatory tree no longer posed a threat. After picking more than 20 purgatory fruits, the man walked back contentedly. When we return to Cloud Peak Academy and present the purgatory fruits to the elders, we'll receive rewards. If the purgatory fruits were considered cicadas, then these dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were the praying mantis. As the saying went, the praying mantis catches the cicada, while the oriole waits behind. Little did they know that as they were heading back, a young man appeared before their eyes. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 221:1 can draw 23 purgatory fruits. The dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were somewhat stunned. They couldn't understand why a young man had suddenly appeared. Was it a coincidence, or, they stared at the young man, who appeared to be in his early 20s and had a very handsome face. The young man was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground, holding a small stone in his hand. He was using the small stone to draw 2 dragons playing with a pearl. The Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were a bit puzzled, not understanding what the young man was doing. Was this a place for drawing? Young man, you've drawn those 2 dragons playing with a pearl quite well, one of the evolved beings said, gazing at Yi Li. Yi Li, hearing this, slowly lifted his head to look at the man who had spoken. After a few seconds, he said indifferently, "Is that so?" "Yes. It's just a shame that this isn't the place for drawing. Please get up quickly and make way for us," the man continued. Yi Li thought for a moment and said, "Actually, not only can I draw 2 dragons playing with a pearl, but I can also draw other things." "Oh." The man was taken aback. He didn't expect Yi Li to not stand up and make way. He felt that this young man was not here for something as simple as drawing a dragon playing with a pearl. "Well, I'd like to know what else you can draw besides 2 dragons playing with a pearl," the man said with a teasing smile. The faces of the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings all had a hint of amusement. They were all 5th-tier evolved beings, and this young man before them appeared to be in his early 20s. How strong could he possibly be? "Besides drawing 2 dragons playing with a pearl, I can also draw 23 purgatory fruits," Yi Li said slowly. As soon as this was said, the man's expression changed dramatically because he had just counted the purgatory fruits they had picked, and there were exactly 23. "Kid, are you planning to steal the purgatory fruits from our hands?" the man asked coldly. The other dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings understood the situation as well. They didn't seem worried, on the contrary, they continued to wear smiles. In their eyes, Yi Li posed no threat to them. "It seems you're not too foolish," Yi Li said leisurely. The dozen or so evolved beings were infuriated by his words. As members of Cloud Peak Academy, they were admired wherever they went. When had anyone ever called them foolish? "I think you're looking for death." With that, one of the evolved beings struck a palm towards Yi Li. Yi Li's expression remained unchanged as he allowed the man's palm to approach. But just as the man's hand was about to reach Yi Li, his body suddenly froze as if struck by lightning. Then, the man let out a miserable scream. "Oh!" A bloody hole had been pierced through the man's palm. Shock, absolute shock. The other dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were frozen in place, and they rubbed their eyes as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. But no matter how much they rubbed their eyes, the fact remained unchanged. The corners of Yi Li's mouth curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. Then his pupils turned golden, and several terrifying golden spiritual lights shot forth from his pupils. Swish! 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 The golden rays of light pierced through the air. These dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were only 5th tier evolved beings and couldn't withstand such an attack. In an instant, all of them let out shrill screams. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 222, Drink These Loyalty Potions, or Die. The dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings all had an extra bloody hole in their legs, and blood was pouring out continuously. It was only at this moment that these Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings realized just how terrifying the young man before them was. Yili slowly picked up the bag containing the purgatory fruits that they had collected. He wasn't particularly interested in the purgatory fruits. He had followed these Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings here with the sole purpose of stopping them from going to the Huangjiang base city. When they had picked the purgatory fruits earlier, Yili had purchased 13 human loyalty potions from the points store. Spending 13,000 points, Yili had over 1,000,000 points left after the battle in Huangjiang base city. He didn't plan to kill these dozen or so evolved beings. If he did, there would be a constant stream of people heading to Huangjiang base city. The only solution was to make them absolutely loyal to him. At this moment, the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings were still screaming in agony, feeling that they were about to die. Yili looked at them and said casually, "Stop screaming. If you scream again, you will die." As soon as he said this, the dozen or so evolved beings instantly fell silent, as they knew that Yili's words were not empty threats. Even in their current state of pain, they didn't dare to make a sound. "Drink these potions, and your injuries will heal," Yili said slowly. Upon hearing this, the Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings looked at each other with uncertainty. They suspected that the potions in Yili's hand might be poison. Even if it was poison, they had no choice but to drink it now. Not drinking it meant certain death, but drinking it might still offer a glimmer of hope. Just as these dozen or so evolved beings were about to drink the potions, Yili activated his healing art and healed all of their injuries. After drinking the potions, the dozen or so evolved beings no longer looked afraid of Yili. Instead, their eyes were filled with absolute loyalty. "Now, return to Cloud Peak Academy and tell them that those 2 recruiters were killed by the Dark Race members in the Northern Wilderness Zone. Cloud Peak Academy has 4 students, Xiao Hui, Yun Man, Su Suner, and Lu Qian. From now on, you will be their subordinates." "Yes, Master," the dozen or so evolved beings replied respectfully. "By the way, what positions do you hold in Cloud Peak Academy?" Yili asked. "Master, we are all recruiters of Cloud Peak Academy." Yili thought that the position of recruiter in Cloud Peak Academy, although not high, was still held by 5th tier evolved beings. If Xiao Hui and the others encountered any trouble in the future, these evolved beings should be able to handle it. "You may go now," Yili waved his hand. Immediately, the dozen or so Cloud Peak Academy evolved beings left the area. Yili opened the bag containing the purgatory fruits. All of the purgatory fruits had human faces and looked terrifying with their angry expressions and bulging eyes. Yili had eaten one before, and it tasted quite good. He picked up a purgatory fruit and began to eat. In no time, all 23 purgatory fruits were swallowed. Ding! Demonic aura plus 1000. The system's notification sound echoed in Yili's mind. Yili realized that this increase in demonic aura was likely due to the enhancement of the ancient devil tome. He couldn't help but be surprised that the purgatory fruits not only tasted good but also boosted his demonic aura. There was no reasoning with that. Now that he was full, Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. There was Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, and Swordmaster Al Chi. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 223, Human-Faced Demon Spider. Currently, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, and Yutong were all 7th tier zombies. Swordmaster Ah Chi was slightly behind, but he would soon reach the 7th tier as well. It was time to upgrade Swordmaster Al-Chi in the abandoned city. Yi Li slowly got up and headed towards the abandoned city. Upon arriving at the abandoned city, Yi Li couldn't help but sigh. He marveled at how there could be such a modern city in the wilderness, albeit abandoned. Roar! Roar! As soon as he entered the wilderness area, Yi Li heard the cries of zombies. While others might find the sound of zombies unpleasant, Yi Li considered these zombie cries to be the most melodious music in the world. Hundreds of zombies were approaching. These zombies were of a slightly higher level than the ones Yi Li had encountered in the Falling Rock mountain range, ranging from level 3 to 4. Take action! Yi Li gave command to the Apocalypse Legion. Immediately, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, and Swordmaster Ah-Chi began to attack the zombies. Yi Li casually opened the synthesis grid in his mind and started synthesizing. Before long, he had synthesized a second-tier male zombie and a second-tier female zombie. After Yi Li had synthesized all the hundreds of zombies, he instructed the Apocalypse Legion to attract more zombies. There were so many zombies in this abandoned city, and the Apocalypse Legion had attracted over 3,000 of them. Yi Li, with a calm expression on his face, watched the scene unfold. Ding! Swordmaster Al-Chi has been upgraded to a 6th-tier zombie. Yi Li was delighted. Now, the sun began to set. The beauty of the setting sun was truly captivating. Yi Li felt that he had had enough for the day and was about to leave when he heard a spine-chilling laughter. Squeak, squeak. Following the sound, he saw a human-faced demon spider. This human-faced demon spider was slightly larger than a bull, with a black and white body. Its face was incredibly pale, resembling a mask. Yi Li couldn't help but think that if this spider were in China, it would surely scare people to death. Spiders were already scary, but the fact that this one had a human face made it even more terrifying. I never expected that there would be a human here in my territory, the human-faced demon spider said with a smug smile. This human-faced demon spider was a 4th-tier dark race member and extremely weak. At the same time, Yi Li noticed that there were many spider webs around this human-faced demon spider, with hundreds of 1st to 2nd-tier small human-faced demon spiders attached to them. One guess it's been more than 3 years since you last had a human meal. It seems like today, you can have a feast, the human-faced demon spider laughed again. Yi Li smiled inwardly, thinking that he was just about to leave when this spider appeared. It was practically seeking death. What do you think, human? Did you come here on your own, or do you want me to eat you? The human-faced demon spider stared at Yi Li. Yi Li was a bit puzzled and said to the human-faced demon spider, "Don't you see my Apocalypse Legion?" The human-faced demon spider was taken aback by Yi Li's words. It had only been paying attention to Yi Li earlier and had neglected to notice the 5 zombies around him. It now took a closer look. Then the human-faced demon spider screamed in terror when it saw the 5 zombies. Well, this human-faced spider was just focused on Yi Li earlier. It knew that there were 5 zombies around Yi Li but didn't pay attention to their eyes. It was only now that it noticed that out of the 5 7th-tier zombies standing beside Yi Li, 4 of them had red eyes, and 1 had silver eyes. In other words, among the 5 zombies standing next to Yi Li, 4 were 7th-tier zombies, and 1 was a 6th-tier zombie. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 224, Ah-Chi, I'll leave it to you. The human-faced demon spider was only a 4th-tier dark race member. Seeing such a force, it was terrified beyond measure. Human, you can actually control zombies. No. You're not human, and you're not a dark race member. What are you, exactly? The human-faced demon spider exclaimed in terror. After carefully sensing it, it realized that Yi Li's body had no human aura and no dark race member aura, and he just had an appearance identical to a human. Yi Li smiled faintly, "You're about to die soon. Why bother knowing who I am?" With that, Yi Li looked at Swordmaster Ah-Chi and said, "Ah-Chi, I'll leave it to you. Swordmaster Al-Chi was now a 6th-tier zombie, and Yili hadn't seen him in battle yet. After synthesizing Swordmaster Al-Chi into a 5th-tier zombie in the Falling Rock Mountain Range, Yili gained a zombie skill called Death-Dealing Triple Ghost Sword. Now, Yili wanted to see how powerful this skill really was. The human-faced demon spider, realizing that Yili had no intention of letting it go, stared at Yili with fear in its eyes, preparing for a life-or-death struggle. Children, attack! With Yili's command, the hundreds of 1st to 2nd-tier human-faced demon spiders around the 4th-tier one all rushed toward Yili. Swordmaster Al-Chi swiftly stood in front of Yili, and his zombie attribute was speed, making him very fast. Swordmaster Al-Chi drew his slasher sword, and in an instant, a sword's cry rang out. The pitch-black cleave sword, gleaming with icy light, was swung effortlessly. As the hundreds of human-faced demon spiders approached, Swordmaster Al-Chi struck. Swish! This one strike seemed like 3 strikes, and 3 strikes seemed like countless strikes. This was the death-dealing triple ghost sword. Instantly, countless sword shadows attacked the hundreds of human-faced demon spiders. These human-faced demon spiders were only 1st to 2nd-tier dark race members and couldn't withstand such an attack. They were continuously chopped to pieces, and the scene was gruesome. The 4th-tier human-faced demon spider was already scared out of its wits, and at this moment, it had only one thought: to escape from this place. The human-faced demon spider had many legs, so it was generally faster than dark race members of the same level. However, no matter how many legs it had, it couldn't escape the cleave sword of the 6th-tier zombie Swordmaster Al-Chi. Swordmaster Al-Chi swung his sword again, and the 4th-tier human-faced demon spider was instantly cleaved in half. Yili couldn't help but think that Al-Chi was different when he had a sword. He had the aura of a zombie sword god. The death-dealing triple ghost sword was currently only a D-grade skill. When it reached S-grade, its power would be beyond imagination. Sword Energy Sword, commanding with an awe-inspiring presence. Ding! Congratulations, host, on randomly obtaining a super treasure chest. Would you like to open it? Open it. Congratulations, host, on obtaining a zombie skill upgrade potion 11. Yili realized that he had merely thought about it, and it happened. His luck was truly exceptional. After integrating the zombie skill upgrade potion into the death-dealing triple ghost sword, the skill was upgraded to a C-grade skill. Then, Yili left the abandoned city and returned to the flame base. Upon his return, Yili noticed that the lights were on in the conference hall of the flame base. He was puzzled, wondering if there was a meeting going on. Yili walked towards the conference hall, and no one dared to stop him. At this point, his status in the flame organization was even higher than Luo Yu's. Upon entering the conference hall, he saw Luo Yu and the captains of the flame organization's squads, all looking extremely serious. Follow current novels on Top Novelfool.com. Chapter 225, Lei Zhan's junior brother. Upon seeing Yili enter, Luo Yu quickly stood up to greet him. Senior, reliable information suggests that Lei Zhan's junior brother has arrived at the Thunder God organization, Luo Yu said to Yili. Lei Zhan's junior brother? Clearly, Yili was unaware of who Lei Zhan's junior brother was. Luo Yu pondered for a moment and then continued. Lei Zhan's junior brother is named Qin Yun. He became a disciple of the sky-crushing demon Hand a few months ago. Qin Yun. Yili contemplated the name. If he remembered correctly, there was also a Qin Yun in the Annan base city. Qin Yun's father was Qin Ba, and after Yili killed Qin Ba, Qin Yun disappeared. Could it be? A sly smile appeared on Yili's face. Could it be that Qin Yun has arrived in the wilderness zone? Or was this guy just a namesake with Qin Yun? Senior, after Qin Yun joined the Thunder God organization, he took charge of the organization. I believe he might. Luo Yu's words were interrupted by Yili. When the enemy comes, we meet them head-on. When the water comes, we use the earth to block it, Yili said casually. With a lazy expression on his face, Yili left the meeting hall and returned to his room. Senior, Qin Yun has arrived with members of the Thunder God organization, Luo Yu said. Yili nodded slowly without any expression on his face. He activated his heavenly spirit eyes and looked out the window. A young man with members of the Thunder God organization was standing outside the flame base. And this young man. A faint smile appeared on Yili's lips. The young man who brought the Thunder God organization to the Flame organization was none other than Qin Yun, the same Qin Yun from the Anan Base city. Originally, Qin Yun could have focused on cultivation and sought revenge in the future. However, it just so happened that Yili encountered him in the wilderness zone. He could only say that Qin Yun was really unlucky. Yili calmly walked out of the Flame base. At this moment, the Flame organization and the Thunder God organization were in a standoff, with a battle about to erupt at any moment. You, a small Flame organization, dare to kill my senior brother? Qin Yun stared coldly at Luo Yu. Even if we killed Lei Zhan, what would you do? Suddenly, a carefree voice rang out among the crowd. Everyone turned to look. When they did, members of the Thunder God organization were visibly frightened. The power Yili had demonstrated when he was in the Thunder God organization was truly terrifying. As for Qin Yun, his eyes widened as he stared at the slowly approaching young man. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Yili. Qin Yun clenched his fists tightly and stared coldly at Yili. Months have passed. Has your father ever visited your dreams? Yili spoke slowly. Qin Yun stared at Yili. This guy had killed his father, a vendetta as deep as the abyss. Yili, for the past few months, I've been dreaming of killing you, but one never thought you would appear before me. According to the Thunder God organization's members, a powerful individual arrived at the Flame base. I never imagined it would be you, ha ha ha. Qin Yun burst into laughter, nearly going insane. What are you laughing at? Yili said calmly. What am one laughing at? Qin Yun stopped laughing. Yili, my master is the renowned sky-crushing demon Hand, an 8th-tier evolved being in the Wilderness North Zone. So, why do you think 1 am laughing? Qin Yun looked as if his greatest enemy was about to be avenged, a triumphant expression spreading across his face. Yili gave a faint smile. So, you just rely on the sky-crushing demon Hand, an 8th-tier evolved being? Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 226. Do you have to see my Apocalypse Legion? Qin Yun was taken aback by these words, and he couldn't imagine why Yili dared to say such things. Yili, don't you know how terrifying my master is? Qin Yun stared at Yili. Does your master know how terrifying 1 am? Yili smiled calmly. He had already reached the 3rd level of the ancient Devil Tome and had no fear of an 8th-tier evolved being. Silence, a long silence. Time seemed to stand still, and at this moment, no one dared to speak. Qin Yun gritted his teeth. Yili, at this point, what is there for you to remain calm? My master can kill you 1,000 times in the blink of an eye. Members of the Flame and Thunder organizations held their breath. The name, Sky-Crushing Demon Hand, was infamous in the Wilderness Northern region, and just hearing it sent shivers down their spines. By the way, Yili, didn't you have some 5th-tier zombies? What happened to them? Are they dead? Qin Yun continued. The members of the Thunder God organization were surprised. What did it mean to have 5th-tier zombies? Could it be, was this person from the Dark Race? Let me correct you, they are my Apocalypse Legion, Yili said casually. Apocalypse Legion. Just the name alone exuded unparalleled dominance. Don't act so self-righteous with me. My master will be here soon, and when that happens, no matter what legion you have, you will die. And all of you will die. Qin Yun scanned the members of the Flame organization coldly. The members of the Flame organization were terrified when they heard that Qin Yun's master was coming. Yi, now that you've heard that my master is coming soon, are you afraid? Chen Yun looked at Yi with a smug expression. But don't worry, you'll die soon, Chen Yun continued. Chen Yun's words left the members of the Flame organization quite frightened, but Yi Li's face remained completely calm, as if he hadn't heard anything at all. Chen Yun noticed that there was no change in Yi Li's expression, and his temples throbbed with anger. Yi Li, I will definitely dismember you and make you understand what real pain is. Chen Yun shouted angrily. The members of the Flame organization all looked at each other in silence. Chen Yun's master, sky-crushing demon hand, was about to arrive, and they couldn't help but feel fear. However, Yi Li remained calm, his face as placid as ever, as if nothing could disturb his composure. Chen Yun, do you know why I haven't let my Apocalypse Legion come out? Yi Li looked at Chen Yun with a playful expression. Chen Yun was puzzled, why? Because I thought that if one let the Apocalypse Legion out, you would be scared out of your wits, Yi Li said calmly. Chen Yun was stunned, he couldn't believe Yi Li had the audacity to say such things. He remembered that a few months ago, in the Annan Bay City, Yi Li's so-called Apocalypse Legion was nothing more than 5th-tier zombies. Although he was only a 2nd-tier evolved being now, his master, sky-crushing demon hand, was an 8th-tier evolved being. Chen Yun, do you want to see my Apocalypse Legion? Yi Li slowly asked Chen Yun. Chen Yun coldly replied, Yi Li, stop pretending to be calm and composed. Even if I see them, what difference will it make? You really want to see? Well then, since you want to see, I, Yi Li, will grant your wish. With that, Yi Li released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Follow current novels on Top Novelful. Com. Chapter 227, The Death of Chen Yun. Currently, Ada, Bai Wawa, Hongye, and Yutong were all 7th-tier zombies, while swordsman Ah Chi was a 6th-tier zombie. After Yi Li released the Apocalypse Legion, all the members of the Thunder God organization were dumbfounded. They all collapsed on the ground in fear. Say, 7th-tier zombies? 7th-tier zombies were easily recognizable by their red eyes. Chen Yun felt like he had been struck by lightning, his eyes were probably the widest they had ever been in his entire life. He remembered that just a few months ago, these zombies were clearly only 5th tier, and now there were 2 additional zombies. 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie, this was too horrifying. Yi Li looked at Chen Yun's horrified expression and calmly said, This is my Apocalypse Legion. How does it feel? Chen Yun couldn't even form a complete sentence at this point. He was trembling uncontrollably, his body paralyzed with fear. Come here and let me kill you, Yi Li said, beckoning to Chen Yun. Hearing these words, Chen Yun was truly terrified, as if his soul had left his body. Yi Li, my master will be here soon. If you dare do anything to me, my master won't spare you. Chen Yun tried to intimidate Yi Li using his master's name, but Yi Li had never been one to be threatened, and he hated being threatened. Chen Yun, if there is a next life, remember never to provoke the wrong people, because the consequences are severe, Yi Li said slowly. Yi Li raised his finger, and golden spiritual energy wrapped around it. In the moment his words fell, the golden spiritual energy shot towards Chen Yun. In his final moments, Chen Yun's eyes were filled with golden spiritual energy, and he could no longer see anything else. Swish! With the sound of breaking wind, Chen Yun disappeared from this world forever. Silence, a deadly silence. It wasn't until this moment that the members of the Thunder God organization finally felt what true fear was. They even felt their souls trembling uncontrollably. For these people from the Thunder God organization, Yi Li had no interest at all because they were just too weak, like fallen leaves on the road. You deal with them, Yi Li said to Luo Yu. Luo Yu was taken aback, and she knew exactly what Yi Li meant. After a few seconds, Luo Yu stared at the members of the Thunder God organization and said coldly, One gave you a chance last time, but now you've brought this upon yourselves. Kill them all for me. With Luo Yu's command, the members of the flame organization rushed forward. Without Qin Yun, the members of the Thunder God organization scattered in panic. Before long, the area outside the flame base was filled with blood. In this ruthless wilderness area, none of the members of the Thunder God organization survived. With the Thunder God organization eradicated, the Flame organization became the strongest in the region. Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion watched from the sidelines. His face, which had been indifferent, became even more so. Qin Yun had claimed that sky-crushing demon hand was coming, so why hadn't he arrived yet? Could it be that Qin Yun was lying? Thinking this, Yi Li's uninterested expression grew even more uninterested. My disciple. A sudden loud shout reached Yi Li's ears. Hearing this voice, Yi Li's previously uninterested expression suddenly became animated. Even with his eyes closed, Yi Li could have guessed that the one who had made that sound was none other than Sky-Crushing Demon Hand, an 8th-tier evolved being. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 228, Meng Qingshan's scheme. The members of the Flame organization quickly turned their heads in the direction of the voice, as a middle-aged man in his 50s descended from the sky. The middle-aged man was dressed in a suit, had sharp sword-like eyebrows, a pair of sharp eyes, and a silver basin-like face. As soon as the members of the Flame organization saw this middle-aged man, they recoiled as if they had encountered a grim reaper. Meng Tsangtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, had a fearsome reputation in the wilderness northern region. The name Meng Tsangtian alone had a shocking effect. When Meng Tsangtian arrived at Qin Yun's body, his face filled with sorrow. Who did this? Meng Tsangtian suddenly shouted in anger. He stared at the members of the Flame organization, and a pressure emanated from his body. It's you who killed my disciple. I will make you all pay. Meng Tsangtian roared. Yi Li smiled and looked at the furious Meng Tsangtian. Qin Yun was only a 2nd-tier evolved being. Do you really have to kill so many people to avenge him? As these words were spoken, Meng Tsangtian turned his gaze towards Yi Li. No wonder a small flame organization dared to attack my disciple. It turns out you exist, Meng Tsangtian said. You control such powerful zombies, but I can't sense the aura of the dark race from you, and one can't feel any trace of a human aura either. What race are you from, exactly? Meng Tsangtian asked, staring at Yi Li. Yi Li looked at Meng Tsangtian and said, since you want to know, I'll tell you. I am a demon. A demon. The members of the Flame organization had already learned that Yi Li was a demon, although they didn't know exactly what that meant. Demon? Meng Qingshan's face showed some astonishment, clearly having never heard of the term before. You can think of it this way, in this world, there is only one demon, and that's me, Yi Li said slowly. Meng Tsangtian stared at Yi Li, feeling somewhat hesitant. After all, Yi Li was an 8th-tier evolved being, and he had 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie. With such strength, there was no way he could defeat him. I didn't expect someone like you to appear in the wilderness northern region. Today, I, Meng Tsangtian, am alone and can't beat you. If you have the guts, come and challenge me in the abandoned city. Meng Tsangtian said to Yi Li, and I'll also make sure to spread the information about you. It won't be long before you become famous in the wilderness northern region, Meng Tsangtian said with a smug look at Yi Li. Yi Li was momentarily taken aback. He didn't expect to get free publicity. But it seemed that Meng Qingshan's goal was to let the humans and the dark race in the wilderness northern region know that a demon had arrived in the wilderness northern region. A demon, neither a human nor a dark race member. Was this meant to make me the enemy of the entire wilderness northern region? A hint of excitement appeared on Yi Li's calm face. He had originally intended to kill Meng Tsangtian, but hearing Meng Qingshan's words, he was actually looking forward to it. As for dealing with Meng Tsangtian, he could do that later. Farewell, demon. With that, Meng Tsangtian leaped into the air and left the area. the members of the Flame Organization were still in shock. Did Meng Sangtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, just leave like that? However, Luo Yu looked at Yi Li with some concern. Although she knew that Yi Li's strength was beyond her imagination, she couldn't help but worry. Yi Li thought that in the coming days, some interesting things might happen. He decided to stay with the Flame Organization for a few days and see what unfolded. Sure enough, as Yi Li expected, many interesting things happened in the next few days. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 229, The Apocalypse Legion. In these days, thanks to Meng Kangshan's propaganda, the name of Yi Li seemed to float like the wind in various corners of the wilderness northern region. They knew that Yi Li was a demon. Neither human nor a member of the dark race. In an instant, the wilderness northern region was in a great uproar. Some organizations not far from the Flame Base came one after another, wanting to join. In just 3 days, the Flame Organization had more than 1,000 new members. Many people came to see Yi Li, wanting to know what this so-called demon was. Ha, are you guys worthy of seeing Senior? Luo Yu looked coldly at the 13 people in front of her. These 13 people had bizarre appearances, with earrings, nose rings, lip rings, and their hair dyed in bright colors. Little girl, what did you just say? We, the Western Mountain Ghouls, coming to your tiny Flame Organization, is already a great honor for you. How dare you speak to us like that? The Western Mountain Ghouls had some reputation in the wilderness northern region, all of them being 5th-tier evolved beings. Sorry, you don't have the qualifications to meet Senior. Luo Yu ruthlessly rejected them. Upon hearing this, the Western Mountain Ghouls all furrowed their brows, and one of them coldly retorted, "It seems like we, the Western Mountain Ghouls, haven't shown up for too long. Nobody in the wilderness northern region remembers our name anymore." Yi Li, who was sleeping on a nearby tree, opened his eyes and watched the scene with a hint of amusement on his face. He never expected to find goths in the wilderness northern region. Western Mountain Ghouls. Yi Li couldn't help but chuckle. Just 13 5th-tier evolved beings. It was indeed a case of, when the cat's away, the mice will play. All duh, go give them a scare. After saying that, Yi Li closed his eyes again. Ada walked over. Standing at a height of 1.90 meters, he had a red cloak, silver gloves that gleamed, golden hair, and muscles all over his body like a coiling dragon. The Western Mountain Ghouls were still yelling at Luo Yu when suddenly they felt like a giant tower had appeared beside them, blocking out even the sunlight. The 13 people were stunned and looked behind them. And when they looked, they were utterly shocked. This person's physique was just too powerful. This. Suddenly, one of the Western Mountain Ghouls was left speechless. Because he had realized that the person in front of him was not a human but a zombie. A 7th-tier red-eyed mutant zombie. As soon as this was said, all the Western Mountain Ghouls took 3 steps back in fright, with cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. This is the leader of Senior's Apocalypse Legion. Luo Yu stared at the Western Mountain Ghouls and said. Before coming, the Western Mountain Ghouls had heard about the demon in the Flame Organization who had an Apocalypse Legion. In this Apocalypse Legion, there were 5 powerful zombies, 4 7th-tier zombies and 1 6th-tier zombie. At first, they didn't believe it, but now, with Ada standing beside them, how could they not believe it? At this moment, the Western Mountain Ghouls deeply regretted their decision. It was unclear if someone had secretly investigated Yi Li or something else had happened. But now both Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion had become known in the wilderness northern region. The Demon King Yi Li, the Fist God Zombie Ada, the Ironfoot Zombie Bai Wawa, the Ice Zombie Hongye, the Petrifying Zombie Yutong, and the Ghost Sword Zombie All Chi. It was unknown who had come up with these names, but Yi Li could only say they were quite creative. Not only did Yi Li's reputation soar in the wilderness northern region, but the Apocalypse Legion was also equally famous. The Fist God, Ironfoot, Ice, Petrifying, and Ghost Sword zombies were all widely known, although very few had actually seen them. Follow current novels on Top Novelful.com. Chapter 230, Why Should I Fear Ants Like You? The 13 Goths from the Western Mountain Ghouls saw Ada with his red cloak and silver gloves, and when Luo Yu added her statement, they naturally realized that Ada was the fist god zombie. Before coming, they simply couldn't believe that someone like this would suddenly appear in the wilderness northern region. Demon King? Neither human nor a member of the dark race? How could it be possible? But now, they found out not only were they wrong, but they were utterly mistaken. Well, actually, we came to join the Flame Organization, one of them said in a terrified voice to Luo Yu. The Western Mountain Ghouls knew that if they uttered any more arrogant words at this moment, there was absolutely no chance of them surviving. Luo Yu was taken aback. She didn't expect the Western Mountain Ghouls to suddenly change their stance like this. You came to join the Flame Organization? Luo Yu looked at them with skepticism. The Western Mountain Ghouls clearly weren't here to join the Flame Organization. With Ada right behind them, the pressure from a 7th-tier zombie was overwhelming. They were struggling to catch their breath. We, the Western Mountain Ghouls, didn't finish their sentence before Yili arrived at their side. Yili yawned, his face showing a lazy expression. The Western Mountain Ghouls were startled. When did this young man appear beside them? How did they not notice him? Brat, did you also come to join the Flame Organization? One of them stared at Yili. Yili shook his head slowly. No. The Western Mountain Ghouls were confused. Then what did you come for? Are you here to cause trouble for the Flame Organization? They thought it was ridiculous that this brat hadn't noticed the fist god zombie. When he realized, his jaw would probably drop. Yili shook his head again. No. The Western Mountain Ghouls looked at the young man in front of them. They scratched their heads, never having seen such a calm young man before. It was as if nothing could faze him. Brat, what did you come here for? One of them angrily shouted. The Western Mountain Ghouls were famous in the wilderness northern region. Now, this young man who wasn't even well-known dared to act so arrogantly in front of them. Luo Yu wanted to remind him but felt that speaking at this moment might not be a good idea and could lead to displeasure from Senior. Yili looked at the man who had spoken. This man had green hair, as if he had a lush green field on his head. He had earrings, nose rings, lip rings, and tattoos all over his body. Isn't this a goth? Interesting. Hee, do you have the qualifications to know why one came here? Yili replied nonchalantly. What? The Western Mountain Ghouls were infuriated by his response. Brat, we are the Western Mountain Ghouls of the wilderness northern region. The 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls stared at Yili, firmly believing that when Yili heard their name, he would be shocked. The people from the Flame Organization who witnessed this scene couldn't help but shake their heads. It was a case of digging one's own grave. The Western Mountain Ghouls had brought this upon themselves. But what the Western Mountain Ghouls never dreamed of was that Yili's expression remained completely unchanged. Brat, aren't you afraid? One of them asked in confusion, staring at Yili. Afraid? Why should I fear ants like you? Yili replied slowly. As soon as these words were uttered, the Western Mountain Ghouls were left dumbfounded. They, the famous Western Mountain Ghouls, had just been called ants. Chapter 231, The Wrath of the Western Mountain Ghouls. The Western Mountain Ghouls stared intensely at Yili. They were the proud Western Mountain Ghouls and wouldn't allow anyone to insult them. Brat, one really admire your courage. You dare to say such things to us, the Western Mountain Ghouls. One of the Western Mountain Ghouls spoke coldly. Yili pondered for a few seconds, then looked at the man who had spoken, saying, Are you not ants? All 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls were 5th-tier evolved beings, and while others might see them as strong, Yili found them to be weak. The members of the Flame Organization watched this scene, knowing well that the Western Mountain Ghouls were insignificant in Yili's eyes. They were anticipating a good show, as such displays were rare. Brat! Since you say we're ants, one will make you regret it today, one of the Western Mountain Ghouls shouted angrily. Yili gave a faint smile and shook his head slowly. Just you alone is not enough. This person was taken aback, thinking, I'm a 5th-tier evolved being. How dare this brat, only in his 20s, be so arrogant to me? What if one join? Another one of the Western Mountain Ghouls stepped forward and said. Not enough. Yili shook his head again, his face calm as water. The Western Mountain Ghouls were getting furious, and another one of them jumped out, staring at Yili and said, what if we all go together? They thought that with 3 against 1, this young man would surely be terrified. However, they couldn't have anticipated that Yili would shake his head again. Not enough, Yili said calmly. Brat, you! What if all the Western Mountain Ghouls go together? At this point, the Western Mountain Ghouls were filled with overwhelming rage, and they had never been so angry in their entire lives. But they would rather believe that the sky was falling than what they were about to witness. Still not enough, Yili said again, shaking his head. The 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls were infuriated beyond measure. They couldn't believe that they, the Western Mountain Ghouls, couldn't handle a young man, and he even dared to be so arrogant in front of them. Luo Yu was also astonished. She watched Yili's calm and carefree expression and couldn't help but feel her heart pounding uncontrollably. All right. Since you say that, today, all 13 of us will teach you a lesson. As the words fell, the 13 members of the Western Mountain Ghouls began to advance towards Yili. They intended to make Yili understand they messed with the wrong person. Yili looked at the approaching Western Mountain Ghouls with a calm expression, standing still like a statue, and he slowly raised a finger. On top of that finger, a terrifying golden spiritual light began to swirl. Just as the Western Mountain Ghouls were about to reach him, Yili's finger descended. Swish! 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 In an instant, dozens of golden spiritual lights shot out violently. At first, the Western Mountain Ghouls didn't pay much attention, but as they tried to dodge the oncoming golden spiritual lights, it was already too late. Their eyes widened as if they felt the gates of hell opening up before them. Ah! In an instant, all the Western Mountain Ghouls fell to the ground, their legs riddled with horrifying blood holes. Chapter 232, My name is Yili. The members of the Flame Organization were all in shock at this sight. Although they knew Yili was powerful, these were 13 5th-tier evolved beings. 13 5th-tier evolved beings were defeated so easily. Listening to the agonizing cries of the fallen Western Mountain Ghouls, the members of the Flame Organization turned their gazes once again to Yili, who had a somewhat slender figure. But the slender figure exuded a tremendous visual impact. He appeared like an ancient deity standing between heaven and earth, truly terrifying. The Western Mountain Ghouls were sweating in pain, and they finally realized what kind of existence they had provoked. Yili looked at the fallen Western Mountain Ghouls and, after a few seconds, spoke slowly. Did you just say you came to join the Flame Organization? Ah! It hurts so much. We were originally here to join the Flame Organization. When Lord Demon King Yili finds out, he won't spare you, one of them cried out in pain. Yili found these Western Mountain Ghouls with their goth appearance quite interesting. Since they came to join the Flame Organization, he might as well facilitate that. He raised his palm and activated his healing technique. A golden spiritual light descended on the wounds of the 13 Western Mountain Ghouls. In an instant, their wounds healed. The Western Mountain Ghouls felt the pain subside and looked at their wounds. To their astonishment, the wounds had disappeared. It wasn't just healing, the wounds had completely vanished, as if they had never existed. "What is going on?" one of the Western Mountain ghouls exclaimed in disbelief. "It seems like that young man unleashed dozens of golden spiritual lights from his palm, and then our wounds healed," another one said. "It looks like it, golden spiritual lights, and the golden aura. SSS-level genetic warrior." In the wilderness northern region, many people had never even heard of SSS-level genetic warriors, but the Western Mountain ghouls had heard of them. Once the Western Mountain ghouls were certain that Yi Li was an SSS-level genetic warrior, they were all shocked. They got up from the ground. They had come to understand that Yi Li was not someone they could defeat. One of them cautiously looked at Yi Li and asked, "May first ask, who you are?" All of the Western Mountain ghouls looked at Yi Li, and their attitude had changed from disdain to respect. Yi Li's lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He spoke slowly, "I am Yi Li." "What?" The Western Mountain ghouls were shocked beyond belief. They never dreamed that the young man before them was Yi Li, the Demon King Yi Li. At the same time, they finally understood the true extent of Yi Li's terror. Originally, they had come with the intention of challenging him, but when they saw the 7th-tier fist god zombie Alda, they realized that it was impossible. Now, a young man had appeared, showing an indifferent demeanor. They naturally wanted to show this young man a lesson, so he would understand the consequences of offending the Western Mountain ghouls. But how could they have expected that this young man was none other than the Demon King Yi Li? After Meng Kangshan's propaganda, the name of Demon King Yi Li in the wilderness northern region was almost a household name. "Lord Demon King, please allow us to become your followers," the Western Mountain ghouls suddenly said to Yi Li. "I, Yi Li, do not need any human followers," Yi Li replied calmly. Chapter 233, Heading to the abandoned city. The Western Mountain ghouls were taken aback. They hadn't expected that Yi Li wouldn't need their following. Immediately, all 13 of the Western Mountain ghouls wore self-deprecating expressions. They now understood the gap between them and Yi Li, like ants standing at the base of an infinitely tall mountain. "Weren't you here to join the Flame Organization?" Yi Li suddenly asked. The 13 Western Mountain ghouls were startled. Despite their eccentric appearances with colorful hair, they were not foolish. On the contrary, they were quite intelligent and understood what Yi Li meant. "Respected Demon King, of course, we came to join the Flame Organization," one of them quickly replied. Wasn't joining the Flame Organization essentially the same as following Yi Li? Luo Yu's exquisite face lit up with joy. She knew that the Western Mountain ghouls were already submissive towards Senior. With the joining of the Western Mountain ghouls, the Flame Organization would naturally become stronger. Yi Li's face remained expressionless. He had been in the Flame Organization for a few days now, and it was time to head to the abandoned city. He remembered that Meng Tsangtian had asked him to go to the abandoned city to challenge him before leaving. He had just been there a few days ago, so he knew the way well. Yi Li opened the Points Mall in his mind. When he was in the Annan base city, he had elevated Qin Chi's realm using points. Now that Luo Yu was the leader of the Flame Organization, it was too weak for her to remain a second-tier evolved being. He spent 100,000 points to purchase 10 upgrade potions. "Luo Yu, come here," Yi Li called out to Luo Yu. Luo Yu was taken aback, and her exquisite face showed confusion. "Senior, what's wrong?" Yi Li handed the 10 upgrade potions to Luo Yu. "Drink them." Luo Yu looked at the potions in Yi Li's hand and accepted them with some bewilderment. Although she didn't know what was inside, she trusted that Yi Li wouldn't harm her. Without much thought, Luo Yu consumed all 10 life potions. Instantly, Luo Yu felt an invisible force surging through her internal organs. Her fair face showed shock and astonishment. M1 breaking through. After a few minutes, Luo Yu couldn't believe it. She stared at her own hands in astonishment and said, "Am I a 4th-tier evolved being now?" She knew very well that her becoming a fourth-tier evolved being must have been related to the potions she had just consumed. Senior, just now, did I, Luo Yu hadn't finished her sentence before Yili interrupted. Yes, just as you thought, Yili replied. I'm going to the abandoned city, Yili continued. Luo Yu knew that Yili couldn't stay in the small flame organization for long. She smiled at Yili. Senior, please be careful. Yili nodded and then set off for the abandoned city, accompanied by Ada. The abandoned city was an absolute danger zone in the wilderness northern region, inhabited by dark race, organized forces, and zombies. Meng Zhangtian, the sky-crushing demon hand, was the master of the Ghost Hands sect, which was a major power in the abandoned city. The Ghost Hands sect was a large faction in the abandoned city with thousands of members. Currently, Yili was an 8th-tier evolved being. Ada, Baiwawa, Hongya, and Yutong were all 7th-tier zombies, while swordsman Ah Chi was a 6th-tier zombie. Yili's primary goal upon arriving at the abandoned city was to elevate swordsman Ah Chi to a 7th-tier zombie. Chapter 234, The Violet-Haired Girl Using the Swift Steps, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion arrived at the abandoned city. Presently, with Yili leading the Apocalypse Legion, it was as if a great sage had arrived, and all other deities had dispersed. The area Yili arrived at was the same as the last time he had been there, where he had synthesized over 4,000 zombies. He wondered if he had exhausted all the zombies here. Upon entering with the Apocalypse Legion, the place felt eerily quiet. Yili used his heavenly spirit eyes to scan the area and confirmed that there were indeed not many zombies left. To advance swordsman Ah Chi to a 7th-tier zombie, they needed to venture deeper. Yili, with the Apocalypse Legion, proceeded further into the city. They arrived at a desolate area with crumbling walls and ruins, as if it had experienced a modern war. Using his heavenly spirit eyes, Yili found several zombies in the vicinity and sent the Apocalypse Legion to lure them over. Before long, the Apocalypse Legion had attracted numerous zombies. These male and female zombies appeared to be at levels 3 to 4. Yili synthesized all of them, and as the number of zombies increased, the level of zombies he synthesized also rose. Finally, after 5 hours, Yili had synthesized a 6th-tier male zombie and a 4th-tier female zombie. After synthesizing the 6th-tier male zombie with swordsman Ah Chi, he upgraded swordsman Al Chi to a 7th-tier zombie. Now, there was one remaining 4th-tier female zombie. Yili's system space already contained another 4th-tier female zombie. By merging these two 4th-tier female zombies, he created a 5th-tier female zombie. Yili smiled in satisfaction. With the Apocalypse Legion's 5 zombies all upgraded to 7th tier, and himself as an 8th tier evolved being, their combined strength made them practically invulnerable in the abandoned city. Run! Run! At this moment, Yili suddenly heard several extremely frightened voices. Yili gazed ahead and saw more than a dozen evolved beings frantically running in his direction. These dozen or so evolved beings were all 3rd-tier evolved beings, and among them, there was only one female evolved being. The female evolved being was a girl with exquisite features. Her long, blue hair flowed in the wind, and she was a 3rd-tier evolved being. Behind these evolved beings, a group of heavy sword-wielding undead, over 30 in number, were madly chasing them. Yili smiled faintly, thinking that these evolved beings must feel like the sky was falling. After all, over 30 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were not something they could defeat. Although people tended to be at their fastest when fleeing for their lives, these dozen or so evolved beings were eventually caught up to by the undead. The evolved beings started battling the group of 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Ah! In an instant, not far from Yili, the sounds of screams from the evolved beings could be heard continuously. Miss, run quickly, well hold them back. One of the evolved beings yelled at the girl with violet hair, then rushed into the group of 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The violet-haired girl was in a state of panic, standing frozen in place. "Miss, run!" Another voice from an evolved being finally brought her back to her senses. By this point, the violet-haired girl was already tearful. She bit her lip hard and then began running toward Yili's direction. All of the dozen or so evolved beings had met a tragic end, and there were still over 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead chasing after the violet-haired girl. Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 235, Do You Know Who Is Most Likely to Die? The violet-haired girl, in her panic, ran up to Yili, stopping just a few steps away. She looked back at the 20 or so third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead closing in behind her. The 20-plus third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were getting closer to the violet-haired girl. The girl turned around, her only thought now being to escape this terrifying city. However, as she looked back, her frightened face turned even more terrified. This was because right in front of her, 6 figures stood in a single file. No, to be precise, it was 1 person and 5 zombies, 5 7th-tier zombies. The violet-haired girl was horrified and had to stop in her tracks. She was trapped between Yili and his group and the more than 20 third-tier skeleton undead behind her. What should she do? She didn't know, she really didn't know. The more than 20 third-tier skeleton undead also came to a halt, all of them staring at Yili. "Sir, this human has offended us. Please do not obstruct us," one of the third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said to Yili. Yili smiled and calmly looked at the speaking heavy sword-wielding undead. "Do you know who I am?" Yili slowly asked. With this statement, both the violet-haired girl and the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were puzzled. They didn't understand why Yili would say such a thing. Then, the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and the violet-haired girl stared at Yili and the 5 zombies beside him. When they saw the eyes of the 5 zombies, their expressions turned ashen. What? 7th-tier zombies. These more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were truly puzzled as to why there would be 7th-tier zombies in the abandoned city. And not just 1, but 5. Suddenly, the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead considered a startling possibility. The youth before them was the Demon King. Yili. It was no longer a possibility but a fact. Recently, all the major forces in the wilderness northern region had heard the name Demon King Yili, and they also knew that the Demon King Yili had 5 zombies. The Fist God Zombie, the Iron Foot Zombie, the Frost Zombie, the Petrification Zombie, and the Ghost Sword Zombie. Now, with 5 high-tier zombies appearing beside this youth, it would be foolish not to realize that he was the Demon King Yili. These 20-odd third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead could realize it, and the purple-haired girl could naturally think as well. She became even more frightened. The skeleton undead were stunned. How had they not noticed earlier that this youth was the Demon King Yili? Noble presence, this human is an enemy of our dark race in the abandoned city. Could you please? The words of the third-tier skeleton undead were cut short as Yili interrupted. Are you trying to negotiate with me? Yili looked calmly at the speaking skeleton undead. All the more than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were startled. The indifferent expression on Yili's face seemed terrifying to them. Despite Yili's handsome and graceful appearance, his eyes were full of murderous intent, and he exuded an aura that commanded respect. Demon King Yili, while you are undoubtedly powerful, do not forget where you are. This is the abandoned city, one of the third-tier skeleton undead said coldly. Yili smiled faintly, glancing at the sun in the sky before slowly speaking. Do you know who is most likely to die in the wilderness zone? Follow current novels on Top Novel.com. Chapter 236, Ziqiong. The 20-plus third-tier skeletons were astonished and stared at Yili in disbelief. Yili smiled faintly, ignorant fools like you naturally wouldn't understand my meaning, so let me tell you. In the wilderness zone, good people don't die, bad people don't die either, only foolish people die. Obviously, you are the foolish ones, even though you're not even human, Yili calmly stated. This statement left the 20-plus third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead utterly shocked as they finally realized the gravity of the situation. They wanted to escape, they really did. However, it was too late. A powerful punch from Aada, combined with wind, rain, lightning and thunder, struck out. Boom! A deafening sound reverberated, and all the 20-plus third-tier skeletons melted into nothingness. The violet-haired girl was dumbfounded and stared at Ada in shock. More than 20 third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were obliterated by a single punch, leaving no trace of their corpses. Are you surprised? Yili asked the stunned violet-haired girl. The girl was startled and didn't know how to respond. If you find this surprising, let me tell you, never be surprised, because everything I do will leave you astounded for 3 days and 3 nights, Yili calmly stated. Upon hearing this, the violet-haired girl's fair face displayed even more astonishment. She had heard of the Demon King Yili. It was said that the Demon King Yili was neither human nor a dark race member but a demon. She had expected the Demon King Yili to be extremely evil and hideous in appearance, but she couldn't have imagined that Yili would be so handsome. Senior Demon King, not from the abandoned city, from the Falling Rock Mountain Range, the violet-haired girl said to Yili. The Falling Rock Mountain Range had many organizations and sects, some of which collaborated with the Dark Race to develop drugs that enhanced human genetics. Yili smiled faintly. What does that have to do with me? Upon hearing this, the violet-haired girl felt as if she had fallen into an icy pit. Yes, what did it matter to Yili where she came from? Senior Demon King, thank you for saving me. If you ever have the time to come to the Falling Rock Mountain Range, I will. She didn't finish her words before Yili interrupted her. Why did you come to the abandoned city? Yili asked. Yili wondered why she had come to the abandoned city when it was quite a distance from the Falling Rock Mountain Range. The violet-haired girl turned melancholic as she responded, the abandoned city is a forbidden zone for life, but we didn't believe it. We came here to explore, but who would have thought? The violet-haired girl didn't continue, her eyes welled up with tears as she blamed herself for being stubborn, which had resulted in so many deaths. Yili chuckled inwardly, thinking that this violet-haired girl was just like Yun Man, who had gone to Copper City to gain experience and ended up in a life-and-death struggle. However, Yili didn't care about these things. What's your name? Yili looked at the violet-haired girl and asked. Senior Demon King, my name is Ziqiong, the violet-haired girl replied truthfully. Yili didn't say much and waved his hand, indicating for Ziqiong to leave. As Ziqiong was about to leave, a proud and unrestrained laughter suddenly rang in Yili's ears. Yili, you've finally come to the abandoned city. Chapter 237, Do you really think I need to run? As the arrogant voice rang out, several wind-breaking sounds followed. Swish! 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 Suddenly, 4 figures appeared in front of Yili. These 4 individuals were all around 50 years old. One of them was none other than the master of the Hand of the Ghosts, Meng Zhangtian, known as the Sky-Crushing Demon Hand. The other 3 middle-aged men were all 7th-tier evolved beings. Yili, I never expected you would dare to come to the abandoned city, Meng Zhangtian said with a mocking smile as he looked at Yili. Ziqiong was practically dumbstruck. Although she couldn't determine the levels of these individuals, she could sense their terror. Yili's face, like carved jade, remained unaffected by Meng Kangshan's words. He calmly said to Meng Zhangtian, the world is vast. Not to mention the abandoned city, even the most dangerous places are no obstacle to me. Meng Zhangtian gritted his teeth and stared coldly at Yili. Yili, you killed 2 of my beloved disciples. Last time, I was alone and vulnerable. This time, you've come to the abandoned city. Do you think you can leave? Meng Tsangtian asked. The three middle-aged men beside Meng Tsangtian were all 7th-tier evolved beings, and they were staring coldly at Yi Li and his Apocalypse Legion. Meng Tsangtian, do you really think I need to leave? Yi Li's face revealed a mocking smile. At these words, Meng Tsangtian and the other 3 7th-tier evolved beings were visibly alarmed. Zi Qiong was even more terrified. She had heard of Meng Tsangtian, the terrifying sky-crushing demon hand who held sway in the wilderness northern region. She had never dreamed that the middle-aged man standing before her would be Meng Tsangtian. In her heart, a storm of shock and disbelief was brewing. Was this what conversations between powerful individuals were like? Are you implying that you intend to fight us? Meng Tsangtian stared at Yi Li. Yi Li smiled faintly. With just you few crooked melons and jujubes? Do you think you're qualified to fight me? Yi Li was now an 8th-tier evolved being, and his Apocalypse Legion consisted of 7th-tier zombie subordinates, Alda, Bai Wawa, Hongye, Yutong, and swordsman Al Qi. In addition, he had advanced to the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome. Meng Tsangtian had no chance of winning against him. What did you just say? Meng Qingshan's forehead bulged with blue veins as he spoke coldly, one word at a time. Yi Li, don't think that just because we're only 4 people, you're guaranteed to win. Do you know where we are? This is the abandoned city. A glint of coldness flashed in Meng Qingshan's eyes. Yi Li remained indifferent and smiled faintly. Let them all come out. No matter how many people are here, in my eyes, they are all ants. He was well aware that Meng Tsangtian had many humans, dark race members, and zombies hidden around him. However, Yi Li had no fear. Meng Tsangtian was startled. He had originally thought that Yi Li was unaware, but now it seemed that he was completely wrong. At the same time, Meng Tsangtian was perplexed. If you knew that there were humans, dark race members, and zombies lurking around, why do you still have no reaction on your face? Meng Tsangtian gritted his teeth and roared, "Everyone, come out." As his angry roar echoed, humans, dark race members, and zombies surged forth. There were over 100 human evolved beings, ranging from 3rd tier to 4th tier. More than 100 dark race members, all in the 3rd to 4th tier, with one in the 5th tier. As for the zombies, there were over 10,000 of them, ranging from 3rd tier to 4th tier. There were over 100 1st-tier mutated zombies, 10 3rd-tier zombies, and 1 4th-tier zombie. Chapter 238, surrounded the evolved beings from the Ghost Hands sect, the dark race members from the abandoned city, and the tens of thousands of zombies had completely surrounded Yi Li. As she watched this scene, Zi Qiong's face had turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Yet Yi Li's face, still as serene as ever, showed no sign of emotion, as though he could see nothing at all. Yi Li, do you still think you don't need to run now? Meng Tsangtian looked smug as he addressed Yi Li. Yi Li smiled calmly. This scene was indeed intimidating, but what kind of situation had he not experienced before? He had once cut the rope on a ship in the middle of the sea, jumped into a bottomless abyss without fear, and faced countless perilous situations. What was this situation to him? Zi Qiong was already in shock. She couldn't understand why there was someone in this world who could remain so calm. Even a fly couldn't escape from this situation. She didn't understand. She really didn't understand how Senior Demon King could be so nonchalant. The Ghost Hands sect and the abandoned city had long discovered Yi Li's presence when he entered the abandoned city through the abandoned city gate. Previously, Meng Tsangtian and the dark race in the abandoned city had already discussed that if Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion dared to enter the abandoned city, they would attack together. After all, the appearance of someone like Yi Li in the wilderness northern region was bad news for all major organizations and dark race factions here. Meng Tsangtian stared fiercely at Yi Li. He was nearly exploding with rage as he pointed his finger at Yi Li and shouted angrily, "Yi Li, why are you still so calm at this point in time?" Meng Tsangtian didn't understand. He really didn't understand why Yi Li could remain so composed. Could it be that he wasn't afraid of death? Meng Tsangtian immediately dismissed this idea. He firmly believed that there was no one in this world who wasn't afraid of death, even someone like Yi Li. Yi Li looked at the furious Meng Tsangtian and casually smiled. Why shouldn't I be calm like this? Arrogant, absolutely arrogant. Not to mention Meng Tsangtian, everyone present was infuriated. Did Yi Li view them all as nothing? Yi Li, I won't engage in a war of words with you. You killed 2 of my beloved disciples, and am going to make you suffer 1,000-fold and die in pieces. Ha ha ha. Meng Tsangtian burst into laughter as if he had already seen Yi Li's death. Yi Li, with so many of us here, even these tens of thousands of zombies alone can kill you and your Apocalypse Legion. With that, Meng Tsangtian whispered something to a 5th-tier Dark Race member beside him. Then, the 5th-tier Dark Race member shouted loudly, "Attack!" In an instant, tens of thousands of zombies rushed forward like a tidal wave. Say. Senior Demon King, what should we do? Ziqiong was already so frightened that her soul seemed to have left her body. However, Yi Li just smiled faintly. Indeed, over 10,000 zombies were a lot. But unfortunately, Yi Li, possessed the super synthesis system, and he was just afraid that there weren't enough zombies. Attack, my Apocalypse Legion! Yi Li calmly ordered. With Yi Li's command, the 5 7th-tier zombie members of the Apocalypse Legion all stood around Yi Li and Ziqiong. Each of them faced thousands of zombies. Just as the massive horde of zombies was about to reach them, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, and swordsman Ah Chi began to fight. Chapter 239, Is that dragon-slaying blade in your hand? Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, Yutong, and swordsman Ah Chi began attacking the zombies coming from all directions. Although they were worlds apart from these zombies in terms of strength, their attacks were perfectly balanced. They could take down large groups of zombies with a single strike without killing them. As usual, whenever a zombie fell, Yi Li would synthesize it. The speed of the virtual fingers in his mind had reached an incredible level. Synthesized zombies attacked other zombies, and in no time, Yi Li had synthesized more than 1,000 zombies. Meng Tsangtian and the Dark Race members were dumbfounded when they saw this. They couldn't have imagined that such an operation was possible. Would these zombies become fewer but higher in rank? This situation was beyond anything they had ever seen or even heard of. Meng Tsangtian was the first to regain his senses. He shouted, "Attack together!" Although he couldn't understand why Yi Li possessed such divine abilities, he knew that if they didn't attack, all the tens of thousands of zombies would die. After Meng Tsangtian gave the order, the members of the Ghost Hands sect and the Dark Race rushed forward. Yi Li commanded the synthesized zombie to the side. If they really started fighting, these more than 1,000 synthesized zombies would be too weak. Kill them all now. Yi Li ordered the Apocalypse Legion. The remaining 9,000 zombies, along with the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hands sect and the Dark Race, advanced toward Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion. Ada unleashed his earth-shattering fist, accompanied by wind, rain, lightning and thunder attacks. Baiwawa charged recklessly, sweeping with his Qilin foot. Hongye used her frost chi to attack with snowflakes covering the sky. Yutong employed petrification abilities and released powerful energy shocks. Swordsman Ah Chi wielded his cleave sword, unleashing the deadly death-dealing triple ghost sword. Boom! In an instant, there were deafening explosions all around Yi Li. Countless human evolved beings and Dark Race members were killed or injured. Yi Li then took out an extraordinary demonic sword from his system space. Clang! The sound of dragons roared alongside the blade's metallic resonance. It seemed that the entire world had suddenly fallen silent. The evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect, the Dark Race members, and the zombies all stopped in their tracks. Above their heads, a 5-clawed blood dragon was coiled. Well, Meng Tsangtian was horrified. But when he looked at the sword in Yili's hand, he gaped in shock. The sword in Yili's hand was terrifying indeed. A blood dragon coiled around its blade, and even a single glance could fill someone with unimaginable shock. Suddenly, Meng Tsangtian realized something astonishing. The sword in Yili's hand was the dragon-slaying blade. One of the 10 great divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade. Ha ha ha. Meng Tsangtian suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. Yili was puzzled, wondering if Meng Tsangtian had some kind of illness. Why did he suddenly laugh? What are you laughing at? Yili asked Meng Tsangtian. Oh, Yili, I never expected that you possessed one of the 10 great divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade. Meng Tsangtian replied coldly. As soon as these words came out, the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect and the Dark Race members were all stunned. Dragon-slaying blade? Of course, they had heard of the dragon-slaying blade, but it was so distant and legendary that they had never imagined encountering it. Now that they heard the words, dragon-slaying blade, how could they not be shocked? Chapter 240, The Unparalleled Strike. Yili hadn't expected that holding the dragon-slaying blade would make Meng Tsangtian so delighted. He looked at Meng Tsangtian with indifference. Oh. I have the dragon-slaying blade in my hand, and what can you do about it? Yili responded. Upon hearing this, Meng Tsangtian burst into laughter again, as if he had never been this happy in his entire life. Ha ha ha. Yili, you ask what one can do. Your dragon-slaying blade will soon be mine. Upon hearing this, Yili couldn't help but shake his head inwardly, feeling that Meng Tsangtian was truly quite ill. Yili, hand over the dragon-slaying blade obediently, and I might consider letting your body remain intact. Meng Tsangtian looked smug, as if in his eyes, the dragon-slaying blade already belonged to him. Hee, a faint smile appeared on Yili's handsome face. Seeing the smile on Yili's face, Meng Qingshan's expression suddenly turned icy, his face almost contorting in anger. Yili, what are you laughing at? Meng Tsangtian stared at Yili intently. What am one laughing at? Yili looked indifferently at him. I'm just laughing at you as nothing more than an ant, yet you don't even know your place, Yili replied calmly. Meng Tsangtian was infuriated by these words, his anger flaring. In that case, don't blame me. Goodbye, Yili. As he spoke, the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect, the Dark Race members, and the zombies attacked again. A wicked smile appeared on Yili's face. With the dragon-slaying blade in hand, he was prepared to deal a deadly blow to anyone who dared to approach. He raised the dragon-slaying blade. Suddenly, he leaped over 10 meters high, raising the dragon-slaying blade high in the air. The blade emanated a cold gleam, surrounded by a menacing demonic aura. Primordial Demon Slash. As the words fell, the blade fell. 3,000 god and demon shadows flew out, and in an instant, it felt as if the sun and moon had lost their radiance, and the earth trembled. The entire world seemed to fall silent in the moment when the 3,000 god and demon shadows struck. Boom! Then, a deafening explosion followed. The aura of the dragon-slaying blade expanded in all directions, leaving nothing alive in its wake. An 8th-tier evolved being, the 3rd level of the ancient devil tome, the primordial demon slash and the dragon-slaying blade combined in this unparalleled strike. No words could describe its terror. Meng Tsangtian and the 3 7th-tier evolved beings from the Ghost Hand sect stared wide-eyed, frozen in place like statues. Ziyun swore that she had never been so shocked in her entire life. Was this, the Demon King Yili? When the radiance of the dragon-slaying blade dissipated, all the genetic warriors of the Ghost Hand sect, the Dark Race members, and the zombies had vanished. The once desolate abandoned city now looked as if it had just experienced a major earthquake. The sheer terror of this strike was beyond imagination. Meng Tsangtian and the Ghost Hand sect's 7th tier evolved beings remained frozen in place. They couldn't believe the situation had turned out like this. Yi Li slowly landed on the ground, looking at Meng Tsangtian with indifference. Do you still want my dragon-slaying blade now? Meng Tsangtian, now finally coming to his senses, stared at Yi Li with fear, not knowing what to say. Come here and let me kill you, Yi Li said slowly. Thump. With a thud, Meng Tsangtian and the 3 7th tier evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect knelt on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Lord Demon King, we were blind and ignorant, we didn't know our place, and it was Meng Tsangtian who pressured us. Please spare us. The 3 7th tier evolved beings of the Ghost Hand sect began to kowtow, begging for mercy. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.